is a Beach Glass Media production.
Once upon a time, there was a girl called Little Red Riding Hood. She lived with her mother in a village near a forest. One day, Little Red Riding Hood went to visit her grandmother. She took a basket of food filled with delightful treats to share with her grandmother. On her way to grandmother's house, Little Red Riding Hood met a wolf. "Hello," said the wolf, with a suspicious tone in his voice. "Where are you going?" "I'm going to visit my grandmother, who lives in the forest," explained Little Red Riding Hood in a pure innocent fashion. After hearing this piece of information, the wolf then ran to grandmother's house, and he went inside, tied up the poor old woman, and locked Grandma in her closet. The wolf then put on Grandma's nightgown and slid under the covers into her bed. A little while later, Little Red Riding Hood came to the house, and she knocked on the door and let herself in. Little Red Riding Hood, with her basket of treats, went over to Grandmother's bed, but suddenly froze in her steps as she approached Grandma's bedside. "Oh, Granny," said Little Red Riding Hood, with a puzzled look on her face. "What big ears you have." "All the better to hear you with," answered the wolf. "Oh, Granny, what big eyes you have," said Little Red Riding Hood, still concerned to see her grandmother's appearance to be very different than what she remembered. "All the better to see you with," replied the wolf, without skipping a beat. "Oh, Granny, what a rather large protruding Adam's apple on your neck. I don't remember seeing that before," said Little Red Riding Hood. "Ah," said the wolf, a little bit stunned to think maybe the wolf's impersonation of grandmother was about to be blown. "You see, Little Red Riding Hood, it's just a swollen lymph node. I'll have the doctor look at it in the morning. Don't worry about that," said the wolf, as he slowly started showing signs of perspiration. "Oh, Granny," said Little Red Riding Hood, befuddled to see what appeared to be a bulge in the crotch region of this impostor. "Granny, I'm starting to think you're not Granny. Oh, good heavens. Sir, I think you're pretending to be my—" And before Little Red Riding Hood could finish asking her question to the wolf hastily stood up on his hind legs, towering over Little Red Riding Hood, and in a fury exclaimed, "It's ma'am, you dimwit. My pronouns are she, her. Get it straight." "Oh, Granny," said Little Red Riding Hood with a mirthless tone, "did you forget to take your antipsychotics again?" My name is Andrew Reyes, and this is the very first video podcast version of Faith and Politics with me, Andrew Reyes. All right, welcome back to the podcast, now available in video format. Now, don't fret, you can still listen to the audio version, but now I'm just going to be trying to do this video thing. I've been working really hard on setting up my video with my lighting, the background, the video recording settings, and I'm really proud of it. So if you want to see what I look like, now you can. As you can see, I'm this swarthy individual, Hispanic, Latino looking dude. Not that I don't care what you look like or what I look like. I mean, that's not fully true. I mean, I did comb my hair. I believe you should look presentable to the things that you matter most. And dudes, if you're going out on a date, come on. You got to look good for your lady, okay? You got to look nice. And you got to smell good, all right? But anyway, I just want to welcome you to the podcast. First time on video. Please like, subscribe, share, follow, all that good stuff. I'll probably say that again at the end of the show, but just got to cover my bases here. And if you want to write to me, you can. Comment, send me a message, follow me on Instagram. I'm on Instagram way too much, so feel free to send me a line on Instagram at the Faith and Politics Instagram page. Now, but yeah, I'm excited to be here. Hopefully this looks good. The audio version will still be available of this podcast. Just wanted to wanted to try something new. This is kind of an adventure for me. I never really wanted to be associated as, like a influencer or anything. I kind of cringe at that term, a social media influencer. That's really not the goal of this podcast. No, the goal is basically, this is a hobby of mine. I started messing around with podcasting with my good friend Marcelo. We have another podcast that we do together called Simple Times Podcast. And, I've always been interested in, the internet world. When MySpace came about, I started putting my music out there. For those of you who don't know, I used to really like to write music and songs and record it and post it and see what people thought about it. I did have a band in my early 20s, mid 20s. We played some pop punk Christian music. So, I always liked putting art out there, whether it be music. I did like painting and drawing, all that stuff growing up. So this is just another creative expression, I guess. And I'm just testing it out. It's an adventure. It's a journey. We're all on a journey. It's important to take risks and have adventures. This podcast may do well, it may not, but you know what? You don't know unless you try. So I'm just trying something new. And thank you for joining me on this video endeavor. So yeah, as I mentioned, working on changing the format of this podcast. Those of you who have been listening to this podcast for a while know that I had my goal was to have a faith section of the podcast and then a political section of the podcast, because, growing up Christian in the United States, you're taught a certain thing in your family life and going to church. And then when you go out into the world, quote unquote, you see things are different. People act differently. People, the culture is different than church culture, whether that be good or bad. If you grew up in a religious household and then you have to enter into, quote unquote, the secular world, you notice that there's some conflicting ideas at play. And, I found it very interesting, and I still do. And it's this, some people might call it a cultural battle. Some people call it a spiritual battle. But it's the world that we live in. And then the reason why I got more into politics is because, I had kids, and I asked myself, what kind of world do I want my kids to grow up in? Do I want to give them the same thing I kind of grew up in, maybe a little bit differently, a little more lenient? Those are the things parents ask themselves. And I think where I land is, we're in this world. We're living in a certain time, in a certain place, and you can't just stay isolated. You kind of have to get involved because, we're social creatures, and we need one another. But the question is, how do we all get along? And that's the idea of politics. Is you have many different groups of people, different ideas coming together. How do we get along? How do we make it work? Yeah, we make laws. There are cultural laws, quote unquote. We live in a culture where multiple cultures come together, and we got to try to figure it out. So, and sometimes when people take things too seriously, it gets a little, just kind of takes the fun out of everything. And, seeing the culture wars, sometimes you just got to laugh at what's going on. And I try to find the humor in everything that I see around me. So, I try not to take things too seriously. Certain things I do, but certain things I don't. And that's why I decided to do a more satirical take with this podcast. Because, sometimes if you want someone to listen to you, you got to make them laugh first. So if you get them to laugh, maybe they'll listen. So that's why we start the show off with like a satirical kind of monologue. So Um, Believe it or not, this is not my first rodeo when it comes to putting myself out on video. And back in 2013, I led a youth group. I was inspired by my bandmates at the time because they were running their youth group. And I thought that was very neat. It was really nice to see how they operated. And, I always felt this pull into learning more about God and the spiritual and theology. I always found it interesting. And that's what you're going to see as I continue this podcast is I'm interested in Christianity, but I'm also interested in politics. And I don't know, maybe that's just like a rite of passage. As you're getting older, you start to see how the world works and you ask the questions like, why are things a certain way? And that's what I aim to tackle on this podcast. But yeah, when I was leading that youth group, I put out 2 videos and I just put it on the youth group YouTube page. And there I was, talking about the importance of prayer. And I believe it or not, I actually looked back at that video, kind of rewatched myself, was that 13 years ago. And it was kind of cringy, not going to lie, seeing a 20-something-year-old version of me explaining the importance of prayer. It's just funny to look at. When you see yourself when you were younger, you think you know a lot when you're, coming out of high school. But then 20 years later, more or less, then you're like, what was I thinking back then? No, I'm not knocking myself down for the things that I said in that video back in the day. I think it's still a good video, but just it wasn't as entertaining. Yeah, like it was kind of boring. So I'm trying to make faith in politics a little more fun. But yeah, I did the youth group for about 5 years. I put up 2 faith-based videos on YouTube. And on those videos, I talked about the importance of prayer. And it just so happens this past Sunday, my pastor was preaching on prayer, the prayer of Jesus. And he focused on the give us this day our daily bread. And I just thought it was interesting because Jesus was asked by his followers, how do you pray? And Jesus laid it down. And let me see. I should have brought my Bible over here, but let me see if I could pull it up. Okay, if it looks like the video cut right here, it's because I went to go grab my Bible. I should have had it right here prepared. If you're listening to the audio version, don't worry about what I'm saying. But that's one of the things that I'm learning about being on video. But anyway, the Lord's Prayer, I'll just read it right here. I got my trusty Bible, got the dust off of it. It says, Our Father in heaven, this is Matthew chapter 6. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread and forgive us our debts as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Now, that's what I talked about in those early videos when I was a youth group leader, and the pastor talked about it this past Sunday. And like I said, the focus was on the daily bread part. Give us this day our daily bread. Now, what does that mean? Well, obviously, daily bread is it's a nutrient. Bread is food. Bread, we all need to eat to survive. Without food, we feel weak. We can't concentrate, so we need bread. We need food. But from Pastor's sermon, the bread, spiritual bread, is God's word. It's we have to, read our Bible, study it, and that's something that I did growing up my whole life. Now, I'll be honest, I stuck around in the New Testament more than I did the Old Testament because some of the things in the Old Testament just felt kind of long and tedious to read. And I like the stories of the New Testament, you really see Jesus in action and the things that he did, the things that he said. And that's, I'll dive more into those things on this podcast as I put on more episodes. But for now, that's all I want to say about that. I am a Christian. For those of you watching this, maybe listening for the first time, I'm sold out. I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus. I believe what he did. And I don't think it's because I was raised in it. No, because there came a moment in my life where I really thought about it. And I believe that we can use our minds, our brains, we can use reasoning and logic to think things through. And if we're honest with ourselves and use our faculties of reason and logic, historical knowledge, and just facts, we can come to the conclusion that Jesus is reliable when it comes to who he says he was. From what we can gather from the Bible, we can look at ancient historical documents, history, archaeology. It all points to everything in this book being true. And if we just use a little bit of reason and logic, like everything has a beginning, and science tells us that the world had a beginning, then does it make more sense that things just appeared out of nowhere, or that there was a creator behind it? We have intelligent minds. Now, it doesn't make more sense that it just evolved from like matter and energy to a mind? Or does it make more sense that there was an intelligent mind that gave us minds? Certain things like that. Now, I'm just scratching the surface. Maybe in the future I'll dive more into what I really think about all that. But yeah, that's basically the faith portion that I want to cover. I am a Christian. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. I believe in the Holy Spirit. That's considered the Trinity. Probably something I'll touch on in a future episode. But I'm not hiding anything about my faith, and I'm an open book. Ask me anything, and I'll give you an answer. So feel free to drop me a line, drop a comment, whatever questions you may have. Feel free to reach out to me. Now, I want to move into the political portion of this podcast. And basically, I want to cover what's going on in the news and recent news. So what is the big thing that has happened? Well, the U.S. bombed Iran. This is pretty big news. And it's really crazy because, growing up, I mean, you're in history class, you did learn about the world wars and all that kind of stuff. And you just know that war was something that happens. And I think growing up in the 90s, you didn't really hear too much about it. It almost felt like the world was a peaceful place. But the more you look at other parts of the world, you come to realize that's not really the case. I think we as Americans, we felt peace probably because we have a really strong military. And, the world doesn't really have the guts to attack us in certain ways, which, I think that's a good thing, at least for security purposes. But yes, Trump instated Operation Epic Fury. Now, that just sounds pretty cool, Epic Fury, Operation Epic Fury. Almost sounds like the title of a Michael Bay film or something. But but what I've been hearing about what happened, the strike the U.S. did on Iran, there's a lot of mixed reviews, for lack of a better term, on this strike. A lot of people in the political sphere and the people that are, people that I listen to, there seems to be mixed feelings. Is this the beginning of World War III? Is this going to be another endless war like when we went to Iraq and Afghanistan and all that? Did Israel strong arm the U.S. into doing this? All that kind of stuff. Well, what do we know? And this is what I've found out. Trump, our president, our current president, Donald Trump, he has been consistent with his view on Iran obtaining nuclear weapons ever since his first term. We know that Iran was developing nuclear facilities and restarting their missile building operations. And I guess the question is, why is this bad? Well, it's it's no surprise that Iran hates America. And not only does Iran hate America, I mean, they hate Israel. I mean, they've been having religious feuds for, I don't know, the beginning of time, it seems like. But, this is nothing new. Iran, or their leaders, their regime, they consider, the United States to be big Satan, and they call Israel little Satan, at least from, from the people that they produce, the radical Islamic types. They're just no big fans of America, not big fans of Israel either. So there's always been fighting in that area of the world, in the Middle East. Now, what do we know? Iran is a threat to the region and to the U.S. Okay, this is what we know. Iran was building up ballistic missile facilities. Iran also had short-range missiles. They were developing nuclear weapons. Iran is known to spread terrorism. Discussions were made with Iran to have a period of 10 years of no enrichment. Okay, this was someone from the U.S., Steve Witkoff, I believe his name was, went to the Middle East to talk about making deals with Iran. And they said, hey, 10 years, no enrichment. The United States will pay for your fuel. And what happened? Well, Iran rejected that offer. So why the strike? Well, according to Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he said, and I'm paraphrasing, that this strike had to happen. And it had to happen sooner rather than later, because they had some kind of intelligence or knowledge that Israel was going to strike Iran. And since Israel is an ally to the United States, then, the United States would be obligated to kind of enter into defense mode. So Trump decided, hey, let's just get the job done. Let's get it done right. Let's get it done right the first time. Now, is this concerning? Of course it is. This is very concerning, but we can at least rest assured because, well, we know the U.S. has the best military in the world. I mean, that's what Trump ran on for this for the latest presidential run. He ran on peace through strength. He's a very big proponent of having a strong military. If you are strong, then no one's going to want to bother you. And, Trump is an America First president. He wants to protect his country. He has to do what he has to do. But, I do get it. A lot of conservatives, the isolationists, and the America First types, they're wondering, how does this benefit America at all? How does this benefit Americans? Because it almost sounds like we're potentially starting World War III. It starts like this is going to be another endless war, like we saw in the early 2000s. But I guess this, in a nutshell, what Trump was saying is, hey, look, they want to kill me, so I'm just going to kill them first. Like if there's a threat, you have to eliminate that threat. And that's kind of, in a nutshell, what's been going on over there. Iran has always been a threat. And I just have to assume that the United States, they have intelligence that I don't know of, and they know that they had to do what they had to do. I mean, was Iran building nuclear weapons? All the signs point that they were. They had like facilities, I don't know, hundreds of feet underground, and I heard that they saw all the equipment being shipped over to that region. It had all the signs of nuclear developments. So, but yeah, this. What else was I going to say here? But yeah, that part of the world, the Middle East, where Islam is like the religion that those people follow. Now, I got to make something very clear. We have to separate the distinction between Muslims and the religion Islam. Muslims are the people. Islam is the ideology. Now, the ideology, it's not compatible with Western values. And sometimes you just have to think about, what does Islam produce? And I mean, I work with a few Muslims, and they're nice people. I have nothing against the people, but I think theology is not compatible with Western civilization. I mean, if we're talking about what it has produced, I mean, I'm old enough to remember September 11th, 2001. That was a terror attack, and I was in middle school, and that was a pretty big deal. I think people seem to have forgotten that the terrorism is real, but radical Islamists taking matters into their own hands, that kind of stuff is real. So the story is still developing. I'm not saying I know everything about it. It's just something that I was interested in. The last I heard is that Iran has been striking as many as 10 countries in their surrounding areas in the region. And it's just weird. Iran's just attacking anyone at this point. Like, you would think they would go after Israel, or I think they did go after U.S. military bases, if I'm remembering my facts correctly. And I did hear that a submarine torpedoed one of Iran's Navy ships, which, I mean, that's kind of cool. I mean, they said that a submarine hasn't been used since like World War II or something like that. So crazy stuff going on. No question about it. This is really crazy. But the last thing I want to point out is that I found this interesting. It appears that no one is supporting Iran. Like, no one's fighting on their behalf. No one wants to buddy up with Iran and fight against, the rest of the world currently. And, I wonder why. Oh, yeah. It's because they're crazy. I mean, not the people of Iran, of course. The Iranian people, from everything that I've gathered, they're really nice people. It's just that the regime in charge, they're pretty much psychos. Okay, the regime in charge, they're not good people. They're not people you want to sit down at a coffee shop with and drink an espresso. But another thing that I noticed is, as soon as the strikes hit, there were videos floating around social media that people, Iranian people here living in the United States, they were celebrating. They were thanking Donald Trump for doing this because they understood the regime in charge that's leading the people of Iran, that's actual fascism. So how funny is it that a lot of the liberals here in the United States calling Donald Trump fascist, yet he takes out the Ayatollah, who is a fascist. Can't remember his name. Starts with a K. It's too long for me to read. But eliminated the Ayatollah, an actual fascist. And that's if the Iranian people are out celebrating and happy and thanking Donald Trump, then Iran was pretty bad. Okay. But yeah, I think that's all I'm going to talk about for when it comes to the Iran issue. If I keep doing episodes more frequently, I'll touch on it. I'll see what I can gather. But yeah, moving on to another topic in the political news. On March 2nd, that was 3 days ago. The Supreme Court, they had a ruling, and it was a win for common sense. And the ruling was that in California, schools can't secretly transition students without parents' approval. Like I said, it's a win for common sense. The Supreme Court, they slapped down this trying to open up the news article here. But yeah, this happened here in my home state of California, and some people are calling it a watershed moment for parental rights in America. So I'm just going to read. This is from the Daily Wire by Leif Le Mayhew. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but just going to read a quick little snippet of this. The Supreme Court sided with a group of parents challenging a California policy that allowed schools to keep kids' so-called gender transitions a secret. In a 6-3 decision on Monday, the justices said that California policies that block schools from notifying parents about their child's desire to change their sex and be referred to by incorrect pronouns likely violate their religious liberty. The ruling comes after the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals struck down a lower court's ruling siding with parents challenging California's policies. We conclude that the parents who seek religious exemptions are likely to succeed on the merits of their free exercise clause claim, the Supreme Court wrote, the majority. But yeah, in a nutshell, because I'm not going on at 30 minutes or a little past 30 minutes. I'm trying not to go too long, but yeah. Sorry, public schools, you can't keep information from parents that your child is trying to transition to a different sex. One, because we all know it's not possible. Biology is real, and you can't change your sex. Now, I understand the whole thing the liberals say gender is a social construct, but why can't you just be happy in the body that you're born with? They say I was born this way. That was the whole thing. I think I did a satirical take on that. Born this way. I was born this way. Then why are you transitioning? Why are you? When they talk about transition, they talk about, chopping off healthy body parts, genitalia. And it's nuts. I don't know how else to explain it. Biology is real. There's two genders, a male, female, and the world wants, or liberal ideology, far leftist groups and activists wants you to believe that you can change your appearance and then you are that thing. It would be like as if I started dressing up like Elvis Presley and I said, hey, I'm Elvis. Like, some people will go along with it and say, oh, yeah, you do a good impression of Elvis. But Am I really Elvis? Answer the question. Am I really Elvis if I dress up as Elvis? No. It's just common sense. So, if I wore a dress and makeup, am I a woman? No. Would I look like a woman? Yes, I would look like a very ugly woman if I put on a dress and makeup. That's the stuff horror movies are made of. If you've ever seen, I don't really watch horror movies, but there's something about when the killer is wearing a dress in those old horror films. Yeah, it's extra creepy, and it's the same thing. I'm trying. I laugh because I see the silliness of it, But I understand. There are people that do think they were born in the wrong body and that they think they're the opposite sex, but it's like, no, we are a part of you. Part of being a human is our body. Am I a Chinese person? No, I'm not. I'm Hispanic, Latino. Am I 23 years old? No, no, my body is 37 years old. Am I a short person? No, believe it or not, I'm a taller specimen. And there's just some things you can't change. I am a man. I'm not a woman. I can't grow a child in my body. Okay. I am of the kind that produces sperm, and my wife is the one that took in the sperm to create our 3 beautiful children. Like, there are just some things that it's just so true, and I don't know why people want to live in a fantasy world. Now, but I guess some people might say I'm living in a fantasy world, but because I'm a Christian. But no, I mean, you have to disprove Jesus and God to me, because the evidence is clear that God and Jesus is real. So, yeah, so that was a major win for the Supreme Court for conservatives, the people who believe in common sense, people who believe in biology. Yeah, you can't try to keep from parents, kids from, parents from knowing that their children are trying to transition. Because 1, you can't transition. 2, parents have a right to know. I know the liberal idea is to separate the child from their parents. That's horrible. Parents have an obligation to raise their children and to instruct their children. And I think somewhere along the way, yeah, that has fallen apart here in America. A lot of parents seem to be very distant from their kids. Every person's upbringing is different. I'm not trying to knock people down, but if there is a standard, I think we do get standards from the Bible, and the standard is this: a man and a woman. That's the only combination that can produce a child. So, a child should be raised by their biological parents. Every child deserves to be raised by their mom and dad. It just makes too much sense. I don't know how else I can explain it. And the parents have a responsibility to raise their children. Now, the parents do have to make steps to educate their children and raise them. And of course, I missed another component of this model is marriage. Marriage is between a man and a woman, because that's the only way a child can be produced. And the government should know when children are being born into the country. That's the only reason why marriage should be between a man and a woman, because you could produce a child. And the government should know that these are the parents to that child. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, the parents should raise their children, not the school systems, not the teachers. But Like, yes, I get it. I had teachers in the past that were very influential, very good to me, that I was inspired to know that, hey, I can do things that seem hard. I do understand this. I had really good teachers. I also had a lot of really bad teachers. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think that's a teacher or a school system. I don't think it's their responsibility to, I don't know, transition kids. Like, no, 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 get that stuff out of the public schools. If people want to transition, pretend to be the opposite sex, uh, maybe once you're 25 years old, because that's when the brain fully is fully formed, according to scientific studies. Yeah, wait till 25. Before that, no. No, you go through puberty. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. We all go through it. It's part of life. It's a part of growing up. If you think life's supposed to be rainbows and unicorns and cupcakes and sunshine every single day, once again, you're living in fantasy. Live in reality. Life's hard. I hate to break it to you. But yeah, good Supreme Court ruling. I'm really happy to hear about that. Let's see. Man, I'm going really long here. Let me try to finish up the last few things that I wanted to talk about on this very first video podcast of Faith and Politics. Yeah, it all kind of relates. This next topic, mass shootings. Okay. It kind of relates to the satirical monologue. It kind of relates to a radical Islam. It's all kind of connected. So this is the point that I'm trying to make, is that we've been seeing a lot of mass shootings in this country, and not just in our country, but also Canada, America's evil top hat. I hear a podcaster say that, Michael Knowles, and it makes me laugh every time. And it's funny because I said that phrase in front of my 8-year-old child the other day, and I was like, oh yeah, Canada is America's evil top hat. And she said, does that mean we don't like Canada? I was like, no. Canada's fine. They're kind of weird. But no. It's just a funny saying because they're on top of the United States on the map. A little strange. They have some strange policies like every country does, but no, they're not bad. But yeah, mass shootings, especially in relating to transgender people. Let me just run through this list. Let's see. The most recent one at the beginning of this month, March 1st, Austin, Texas. A bar in Austin, Texas at like 2 a.m. Of course, this was directly... there's good evidence to believe it was related to the U.S. bombing Iran. But yeah, some psycho decided to open fire at a bar where people were just partying, having a good time. And yeah, how do we know this guy was Islamist? Well, he had a shirt that said property of Allah. And then I saw a photo floating around. It's kind of hard to tell these days if it's real or not. I don't think it's AI generated, but they lifted up that shirt that said property of Allah, and then underneath was an Iranian flag. So there's reasons to believe this guy was a radical Islamist nutso. It killed a few people, including himself. He was taken down. But yeah, just a sad thing. You want to believe this shouldn't happen in the United States, but it does. And yeah, we should not have those kinds of crazy people in this country. I think he was a naturalized citizen, and it's crazy. Last year, in December, there were in Australia, Bondi Beach. It's crazy because my wife and I started watching the show Bondi Rescue. Very, very interesting show. It's about lifeguards at Bondi Beach. But yeah, there was a mass shooting. It was anti-Semitic, and it was a pair of radical Islamist terrorists. And yeah, a lot of people were killed. It's very sad. You wouldn't think that would happen. in a country like Australia. But yeah, terrorism is real. It's just very sad. And obviously it was an anti-Semitic attack, because I think this was during Hanukkah. And these radical Islamists, they hate the Jews. And I like what this author says. Andrew Clavin says that they hate the Jews because they hate the big Jew, Jesus. Jesus was a Jew, culturally speaking. They hate anything related to Christianity and Judaism, which is terrible. But yeah, but those are radical Islamists. But now let's bring it back to these transgender shooters. Very crazy stuff. The first one that made a splash was in 2023, the Covenant School shooting in Nashville. It killed 3 9-year-olds, 3 adults, and the shooter was, trans. It was a woman transitioning to a man. So it was a woman. And what women do to try to be more like a man is they take testosterone. They're on hormones. And I don't know if we have enough information how it affects the brain, but we know that it does. And not only does it affect the brain, but just thinking that you can transition from one sex to another, that is some kind of mental disorder. I mean, there is gender dysphoria. That's a real thing. And I mean, it's really sad. If people really think that they're born in the wrong body, it goes against the idea that God created you special. Like, I think you have to, one, not believe in God or hate the idea of God to really hone in on this transgender ideology. It's not compatible. But yeah, that was a horrible thing in 2023. Bringing it more recently, of August of last year, the Annunciation Catholic School shooting. It was a 23-year-old man. He thought he was a woman. 2 children died, plus the perpetrator himself. And then 30 other people were injured. And that was a very, very, very horrible sight. Just terrible to hear that kind of stuff happening. But yeah, you have to wonder, why do these crazy transgender terrorists go after churches? Well, they hate God. I don't know how else to put it. And it's very sad for the victims. I have kids myself, and to think that something like that could happen, it would be devastating. And I really feel for the parents that lost their kids. Now, can this be avoided? Yeah, stop promoting these weirdo ideologies, for one. Let's see, what else? This past February, at a hockey game in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, there was a man. Of course, he thinks he's a woman, where there's pictures of this dude in a dress. He killed his ex-wife and his son, and opened fire at the hockey rink. It's terrible. How can someone in their right mind think that this is a good thing? Can someone in their right mind think, killing my ex-wife? Oh yeah, okay, I could see you getting mad at your ex-wife, but then having the intent, premeditated intent to kill your ex-wife and your son, that's delusional. There obviously there's some kind of mental disorder going on here. But yeah, that was terrible. 3 others were injured because this guy opened fire at the hockey rink. Just terrible stuff. Also, this past February, this happened in Tumbler Ridge in America's Evil Top Hat, Canada. An 18-year-old man, he thought he was a woman, killed 8 people and wounded dozens at a school. It's just terrible. These people, one, you think you're the opposite sex, and you want the world around you to change to conform to you. It's a very narcissistic thing, if you think about it. Like, I want the world to see me a certain way, and if they don't see me a certain way, then I'm going to be mad and go crazy and nutso. Now, of course, I'm diluting what's really going on. We really don't know. I mean, sometimes we do know the motivations. Like, it's pretty clear. But the demons that these people must be dealing with, it's just insane. And of course, I got to mention this. Charlie Kirk. He was assassinated last year. And the shooter trans? No, but the shooter's lover was a trans identifying person, a furry. Furry are the people that dress up in like animal outfits, and then they think they're that animal or expect people to treat them as such. Once again, very weird. Seems delusional to me. But once again, it's that ideology. And we do know the motivations of that, the assassin. He wrote stuff on the bullet casings. There was writings. It's just evil stuff. I don't know how else to put it. I try to stay away from the Christianese language on this podcast, but you got to talk about evil. Killing just people that want to have dialogue with college students. That's evil. And then people make the claims that Charlie Kirk was this horrible person. Like, well, not really. He was loving to his wife. He just had ideas about America and believed in freedom of speech. And yeah, he said crazy things like college is a scam, which kind of, if you can't talk freely on college campus about sharing your ideas in a university, and the universities want to shut it down, and then the people on campus like Antifa go crazy and start rioting and stuff, then yeah, that says a lot about the universities and the culture of the university. It's like, what, are you scared of people thinking? Are you scared of people dialoguing? Are you scared about people having conversations? Then maybe don't go to university, because that's what the university is for, is to learn about different ideas, to express your ideas, to learn something new. I like the arts. I consider myself an artist, and I do see the importance of a higher education. I think some people are suited for it. I think some people are not. I wasn't really suited for it. I wasn't self-disciplined enough at the time. Maybe now I would be, but I'm not going back to school anytime soon. But yeah, a lot of hate seems to come out of the transgender community, and it just makes me wonder what happened to intolerance or tolerance. Like, tolerance is everything, kindness is everything. It's just crazy to me that these people that preach intolerance, or that preach tolerance, sorry, I'm getting my words confused, seem to be very intolerant about different ideas. That was such a downer. I don't want to end my first video podcast with such a bummer of an ending. So yeah, I've been talking a lot. I've been jibber-jabbering too much. Time to bring it to a close. Here we go. I will end the podcast with a different downer and a different bummer of an ending. And it is this: that one day you're going to die. Okay. But that's why the gospel becomes very important. Once again, like I said, I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus. I believe in God and the Holy Spirit. And I believe in the gospel. What does gospel mean? And I still remember vividly, I would try to teach the youth group that I led 15 or so years ago what the gospel means. And I try to, I'm a simple man. I want to keep things simple. I want to overcomplicate things too much. Maybe I will go on to more complicated topics in the future, but not today. The gospel. What does the gospel mean? The gospel means good news. But to understand the good news, you have to understand the bad news first. The bad news. The bad news is basically we suck at humans. As humans, we're pretty bad. We're bad people. If you don't believe me, just ask yourself why we have so many laws. Because the law is a teacher. And we need to know when we're doing something wrong. And there has to be standards that we must live by. So we're bad people. We think we do good all the time, but we don't. All right, we lie, we cheat, we steal, we gossip, we mistreat people, we swindle people, we hurt people. Yeah, we're bad. That's just what it is. It's our human nature. We were created perfect in the garden. If we look at the story of Adam and Eve, everything was perfect. But then sin entered the world through the snake, which is the devil. And that's kind of like we got tainted. And sin entered the world. We're sinful people. Okay, we're bad. Sin means, what does sin mean? It means you missed the mark. It means you didn't live up to expectations. And that's just human nature. So even when we try to live morally and perfect and we try to be good humans, we still mess up. Nobody is perfect, except there was one person who lived a perfect life, and that was Jesus Christ. He died for our sins. He was executed on a cross. That was the Roman death penalty of that day and time. Even though he did nothing wrong, even Pontius Pilate said, I see nothing wrong with this man. I don't know why he deserves a death penalty, but you guys say he deserves a death penalty. So go. And he said, I want my hands washed from this. But that's the good news. The good news, or the gospel, is that he rose again after 3 days. It created a new way to have a relationship with God, who is real, by the way. And you can now live a better life trusting in him. And you can have everlasting life because of Jesus Christ, whose blood covers your sins, covers your wrongdoings, in layman's terms. In other words, everything that Jesus did on this world, for everyone, that's essentially the grace of God. You would hear the song and maybe pop culture, the song Amazing Grace. And you're like, well, grace, what is that? Well, grace is getting what you don't deserve, I believe. I should have written this down. But grace it's like a free gift that you don't deserve. And the grace of God is everlasting life through Jesus. If you put your faith and trust in him, you can have this everlasting life that Jesus talks about by God's grace. But you know what? That's all for today. Thank you for listening. Please remember to like, subscribe, follow, rate the show. Follow the Instagram page for updates. DM me on Instagram. That's the best way to reach me, at the Faith and Politics Instagram page. You can comment on Spotify. You can comment on YouTube. And I just might read it on the next episode. So lastly, don't forget, keep up the faith.